Welcome everyone to this video on deeper learning about ego states for advanced TA training. This video is intended for advanced learners and it is designed with experiential exercises. For best learning experience, please do all the exercises. This is a brief presentation on higher order ego states. This is a deeper delving into the structure of our ego states which we have already learned in our earlier learning. At the end of this session, you will be able to describe what it means to say higher order ego states with some illustrative examples. You will be able to draw a picture and describe the second order structure of all the ego states. You will be able to draw the picture and describe third order structures as Byrne has described them. You will be able to describe the integrated adult. You will be able to describe the horizontal and vertical divisions of the parent ego state. You will be able to get in touch with your own ego states and develop a capability to delve into the second order nature of your ego states. When we say finer structure of the personality, we are referring to some of Byrne's statements about the higher order ego states. The first order personality structure is named P1, A1 and C1. For generally early transactional analysis, that is enough. But complexities will be observed as analytic work deepens or as deeper learning of the transactional analysis theory happens. Byrne goes on to from child to adult to parent in describing these complexities. In an attempt to differentiate TA from psychoanalysis, Byrne refers to the higher order of ego states while saying the internal structure of the child decisively differentiates the phenomenological child from the conceptualized, unstructured psychoanalytical concept of id. He says that the adult can be said to have a childlike and ethical aspects, ideally exhibit personal attractiveness and responsiveness, objective data processing, and ethical responsibility. And it is called the integrated person. He also says that with good genealogical evidence, the material of the finer structure of the parent ego state can be referred back to the original parent of man. It might sound a little exaggerated, but technically that's what he's saying is theoretically possible. Now, learning about the ego state layers, it may be understood using a few other illustrations. Joshua Royce, the American idealist philosopher, described smaller maps in each of the maps we draw. As you can see here, this is a big map, there are smaller ones in that. In a similar way, we can understand that there are deeper constructs inside the ego states as well. Similarly, another way of illustrating this concept is the Droste effect. It is named after the Droste cocoa powder tin, which has a picture inside the picture on it. So also the baking powder tin problem, where the baking powder tin shows a girl holding the baking powder tin on it, and so each of the picture inside shows that. So in a similar way, ego states are built inside ego states, or the second orders are built inside the first order. The mathematician Kossybski referred to this phenomenon as map is not the territory. That means there are deeper structures inside the maps to understand. Another analogy that is usually used is the Russian nesting dolls. The smaller dolls go inside the bigger ones. Similarly, ego states developed earlier are embedded inside the later developed ego states. What is visible or accessible first are the later developed ones, like onion peels. Then a whole layer is seen inside and goes on like that. How the higher order ego states are embedded. Here we can see well aligned picture of first order ego states followed by the second and third order ego states. It is an animated picture showing how it develops. The second order structures are named P2, A2 and C2. The third order structures are named P3, A3 and C3. It may be noted that there is some inconsistency across authors in naming higher order structures. Here I am following the pattern which Byrne has followed. He put a suffix 2 into the second order structures and suffix 3 for the third order structures. Namely, P1 is the first analyzed ego state, P2, A2 and C2 are the second analyzed or the second order structure, P3, A3 and C3 are the even deeper structures called named with a suffix 3 on it. This is an animated picture of the second order structure in all ego states. In all ego states, Byrne conceptualizes second order structures. C1 is the child ego state when the first ego state analysis is done. P2, A2 and C2 inside the child are ego states developed at earlier stage before the ego state analysis is first attempted. That means if you are 18 years old and now doing a PAC, you identify your child ego state. But when you were 5 years or 6 years, you already had a parent, adult and child ego state, which is embedded within your child ego state now. That's what it shows, the P2, A2 and C2. If you look at the adult, the A1 is the first identified adult ego state. P2, A2 and C2 are described as seen in the integrated adult, meaning values incorporated into the adult from the parent are called P2 in the adult, and values incorporated from the child into the adult are called C2 in the adult ego state. If you look at the parent ego state, the first analyzed ego state is called the P1, and the P2, A2 and C2 are shown in two colors. That is to depict the fact that each of them are inherited from the two different parents. So in the parent, the P2, A2 and C2 are the PAC of the parent of the child whose parent ego state we are learning about. Now it is time for a break. Stop the video and recapitulate what you have learned. Do this exercise and then move on with the rest of the video. This is third order structure of the child ego state. The PAC that formed very early, namely P3, A3 and C3 are embedded within the later formed C2, which is again embedded in the C1. That is the ego state that we find out at the analysis or the last formed ego state. This level of finer analysis is possible only in therapy or deep interaction. This picture shows the third order structure of the parent ego state. The P2, A2 and C2 are the PAC of the parents of the person. The P3, A3 and C3 are the PAC of the parents of the parent of the person or grandparents of the person whose analysis is being done. Though the third order structure of the child ego state is also named P3, A3 and C3, you can see that they are different in their structural origins. Functionally, both of them may have similar qualities, namely the P3A3 of the parent ego state and the P3A3 of the child may have functional similarities, but origin is different from the structural perspective. Now it's again time for a second exercise. Please stop the video and do this exercise and continue with the video. This is an animated slide showing how the second order structure of the adult ego state develops by integrating parent values from the parent ego state and the child feelings from the child ego state. Integrated ethos refers to the universal human values like truth and love integrated from the parent, and integrated pathos refers to the universal quality of empathy or emotional attunement to the other that is inherited from the child ego state. The typical second order structure of the parent ego state, horizontal and vertical. The vertical division of the second order structure of the parent ego state depends on the number of parenting figures a child has. Generally, every child has multiple parenting figures as shown here. There may be even more persons than what you can see in this picture. Depending on how significant each of them was in the development of the child, the impact of each of these parent ego states varies. Horizontally, as you can see, it depicts how the parent ego state of a child introjects the parent, adult, and the child parts of the parent of the person. So that is the P2, A2, and C2, or the PAC of the each of these parental figures. Now let's do this exercise. Stop here, do the exercise, and move on with the video. So for your own clarification, for deeper learning, this is an exercise to get in touch with the contents of your first order ego states. This on reflection will give a lead to your own second order and third order structures. So these are the questions. Draw a picture of your PAC and put question numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beneath it and write the answers. Who is the parent figure in your life that you most often imitate? Identify at least two values of that person which you have also introjected. And how do you practice, or which behavior of yours reflect these values as an adult person in life? And what are the belief systems in your child ego state about yourself? And what are your beliefs about your closest associates? Thank you for listening, and thank you for doing the exercises. We'll have clarifications in the online learning session.